ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, you're me, Louie T. Welcome to Monday Night Football overtime. Chargers, Jets. This was a game that I thought could be closer than it needed to be. And for a while there, I thought that's where we were heading. Got off to a quick start for the Chargers, jumped out to a 14-0 lead. But then they kind of hovered around that 14-point mark. Jets kind of, chipped away at the lead, kicked the field goal. They got the field goal back before the half, but then the Jets got another field goal. And I was just like, you're hanging around that danger zone. And and there were several scary moments if you're a Chargers fan. Balls on the ground, Herbert fumbles, you're deep in your own territory. I mean, that's the play the Jets are looking for. And I thought Aikman said it best. They're just looking for that one turnover, that one play that gives them life, because otherwise they were dead. The Chargers defensively dominated them, and that's what the Jets have been this season, right? Opportunistic, hang around, wait for you to make a mistake and pounce on that mistake, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a dogfight against a team that just plays excellent defense. But the Chargers, to their credit, and sometimes it's just your night where the ball bounces your way. That ball was on the ground several times. Late in the game, Darius Davis fumbles, a muffs the punt. You've got a ball on the ground with Justin Herbert that you're able to recover. Ball batted in the air, and Quincy Williams doesn't know where the ball is. If he locates it, might be picked off. There were several opportunities for big plays to be made. Austin Eckler has a ball go through his hands on a third down, and it actually goes into the hands of Sauce Gardner. But he wasn't prepared to have a ball land in his arms. He was going to try to make a tackle and maybe break up the completion and force a punt. So there were opportunities, but unlike against the Eagles, unlike against the Bills and some of the games that they've found ways to win where they were able to create turnovers and opportunities for their offense, they didn't have that tonight, So credit to the Chargers for not making their fan base sweat this one out. That, the Chargers are one of those teams that they find and create ways to create heartbreak for their fan base, find ways to lose games in excruciating, painful manners. And so it was nice to see them up 3 scores with this game well in hand and not have to sit at the edge of their seat, biting their fingernails, hoping that their team can hang on for the victory. Because it seemed like it was trending in that direction. I kept waiting for that one play. There's a slant to, Wilson. And if Zach Wilson can hit Garrett Wilson in stride without having him leave his feet, it's a foot race because he's got the corner beat. The safety, I think he's going to beat his angle to the sideline and turn up the field. Who knows what happens? All bets are off. But Zach Wilson couldn't hit him. And, that was the story of the night. They just couldn't create any breaks for themselves. And credit the Chargers. Anytime they tried to get something going, their defense rose to the occasion, whether it was, making a play on the outside, stopping Breece Hall before he got going, or one of the 7 sacks on the night that really stunted the growth of this Jets offense in any drive that they were trying to put together. And the Jets did, what bad teams do, self-destructed on offense with penalties. Every time they got a nice little chunk play, holding, hands to the face, something that just negated a positive play. And for a team that struggles on offense, you can't afford to be in 1st and 18. How many times did we see that tonight? 1st and 18. I think, 18 is such a weird number to see a team needing, on 1st down. 2nd and 18, okay, it was 2nd and 8, holding penalty. Say it's weird to see 1st and 18. I saw that at least twice tonight, maybe 3 times with this Jets football team. So they were doing some special things, were the Jets. And I thought that the punt return, let's start with the Chargers. Let's go ahead and jump into the Chargers. I thought Darius Davis and his punt return for the touchdown early in the game, I thought that was a pressure release for the Chargers. Because had he not done that, I think this is an uptight Chargers team that would have struggled offensively, which they did. They didn't even amass 200 yards of total offense tonight. So they were going to struggle. And, Robert Saleh had already said, we've played all the top quarterbacks in the league for the most part, and we've mowed all of them down. So Herbert was the next in the long list of quarterbacks that they faced this year that they've made look pedestrian. And they did exactly that. Herbert, I don't think he had 50% completion percentage. What did he finish with? 16 to 30, barely 50% completion percentage, 136 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, that's far from an average night. That's well below average for a guy like Justin Herbert. So the defense for the Jets did their job. And had they not gotten that punt return for the touchdown by Darius Davis, they would have felt that game pressure that the Chargers often succumb to, and this would have been a totally different game. But I think that was a pressure release for them. That return allowed them to just breathe. Okay, let's settle in. And then, you get the second touchdown, and I'm not sure, I may be off on this. I don't know if the Bosa forced fumble was what helped set up the second touchdown. That might have already been a 14-0 game, and they didn't get anything off of the Bosa touchdown or strip sack, forced fumble, recovery. I think he had the triple threat there, sack, forced fumble, and the recovery. But whatever the case may be, once they got out to that 14-0 lead, you felt comfortable if you're the Chargers and you didn't know what Chargers defense was going to show up. But if they showed up like they did, ultimately, the Jets have a tough time scoring. That's not a secret. So if you're able to just do the little things, tackle Breece Hall, not give up any explosives to him or to Garrett Wilson, keep everything, because all you're looking to do, seriously, if you're playing the Jets, all you're really looking to do is two things. Don't allow anything explosive with Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall, and just make Zach Wilson have to continuously make plays, because eventually he's going to do something stupid, whether it's hold on to the ball too long and take a sack, throw the ball in a direction that gets batted or gets, picked off, or they're going to have a penalty. Something's going to go amiss. Something's going to go awry with this Jets offense. And normally it's with Zach Wilson. So all you got to do is not give up something explosive and just make them have to go. And again, if he's able to do it, go 13 plays without a hiccup. We saw that they put together a nice drive in the second half, right? And then the Chargers defensively got the 2 sacks. And just like that, the drive was over and they had to settle for a field goal, right? Eventually, that's going to happen. What a night for Bosa and Mack and Thule. Tololo. I knew I was going to mess his name up. I'm just going to call him Thule. They were outstanding. Thule, Bosa, Mack, and company. They dominated the Jets front. And with 7 sacks on the night for the Chargers, they really were carried by this defense. I thought Derwin James kind of set the tone early with physicality. He had a big hit early in this ball game, and kind of just felt like the rest of the defense just responded to that kind of energy early. The fumble that they forced and James recovering, I think that was the play that set up the second touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Bosa fumble didn't result in any points for them because it was right around midfield, and I don't think they did anything with that. Might have even gone backwards. So The Chargers, I felt like they left a lot of points out on the board, on the field. Eckler had at least 3 drops. I'm not accustomed to seeing Austin Eckler drop the football the way that he did tonight. They weren't always the easiest passes to handle. One was low, one was behind him on the little third down slant sort of concept there. But all in all, there was a ton of pressure on Herbert. You know the Jets have a dynamic back end. You don't have dynamic receivers right now. You know, Keenan Allen is essentially all you really have at receiver. And so with no Palmer, obviously Mike Williams out for the season, doesn't really give you a ton of confidence throwing the football to any of the other guys, not named Gerald Everett. So, and that was another play. Everett fumbled, right? Like I said, the ball was on the ground a ton tonight. And the Jets never, were able to recover one of those and change the game. And credit the Chargers for finding ways to just avoid the big mistake. Even though there were a lot of opportunities for the Jets, the Chargers always seem to come up with the football and avoid that catastrophic mistake to allow the Jets back into the ball game. If you're a Jets fan, I'll just say this, if you're a Chargers fan, I'll just say this. You're back to 500. There's a lot of positives to take from this game. Offensively, not a ton. Not a lot of things you can hang your hat on in this particular ball game from an offensive standpoint. You won the game. You did what you needed to do. And that's pretty much all you're going to say about the offense is you didn't screw it up. And my philosophy when you're playing the Jets offensively, if you've got a quality defense, is, hey, just don't screw it up. Just don't turn the ball over. If you just take care of the football against the Jets, you're going to beat them if your defense is half decent. If you look at all the games that they've won, all 4 of them were aided and abetted by the opposition. The Bills game in week 1, all Josh Allen had to do was turn around and hand the ball off after they built that 13-0 lead. They didn't have to throw another pass the rest of the game, and they would have won. And instead, he threw like 3 or 4 interceptions, and that's what essentially allowed the Jets to crawl their way back into the game and ultimately steal it in overtime with the punt return, right? You think about the game against the Eagles. Hurts has 3 interceptions. They fumble the football. All kinds of foolishness transpires. That's how the Jets win that football game, right? Turnovers. And turning those turnovers into points. Think about the game they won last week against the Giants. All the Giants had to do was make 2 field goals. 1 field goal. Forget about the first one they missed. Just make the last one. And then it's a 13-7 game with 30 seconds left. The game's over. They miss. And then their defense falls the hell apart. And it's tied up at 10. And they ultimately win the game in overtime. 13-10. The Broncos game, same thing. Turnovers by the Broncos. They took advantage. They actually played solid offense that day, though. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is that's who they've been this season. And the Chargers just stayed out of the way offensively. They just stayed out of the way. Hey, we're not going to F this up. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just got to know thy opponent. Too often in this league, teams don't understand what is required of them that particular night to get a win. Sometimes I don't need for you to be Superman. I just need you to be Clark Kent. That's good enough to win this game. They didn't need Justin Herbert to be Superman tonight. Sometimes he's got to put that cape on, like the Vikings game when he threw 49 times and completed 40 of them. They needed him to be Superman that night. They just needed Clark Kent today. Don't do anything special. Don't do anything stupid. Just be normal. Don't turn it over. We'll be fine. But if you're a Chargers fan, you got QJ involved, right? Got Quentin Johnston, your first round pick, involved. 3 targets, 3 touches, 2 catches, and a jet sweep. Hey, how about that? He touched it 3 times in a game, right? Woohoo! So that's a positive, right? You stuck with the run game, even though it was largely ineffective for most of the night. You stuck with it, right? Good job. Okay. You didn't get Justin Herbert killed, right? Awesome. So there's some positive. Keenan Allen over 10,000 yards receiving with the circus catch. That's one for the record books. That's one he'll never forget. You know, if you're going to go over 10,000 yards for your career, that's how you do it, in style. Damn, that was a hell of a catch. So there were some positives, right? Darius Davis on the punt return. Man, I loved him coming out of TCU. I mocked him to my Commanders. I wanted him so bad. But the Chargers, they took him way earlier than I thought anybody was going to take him in the draft. They took him in the 4th round. I thought this dude would be around in the 6th, possibly the 7th round. They took him in the 4th round. You wanted him better than I did. But you see what this kid is capable of, which is why I wanted him, because I knew he could add some juice in the punt return game. And that was a dynamic 82-yard return for a touchdown. Defensively, though, that's where it's at tonight for the Chargers. They were all over this Jets offense. I mean, they suffocated them. The 7 sacks, it just starts the story. It's half of what went on. But what they were doing on the back end was spectacular work. You know, Davis, I thought, was playing tight coverage, physical all night long. Excuse me. I thought they tackled well. I talked about what they were able to get from Derwin James. I thought he was physical around the football. I thought they made plays all night long, physical, challenged these receivers. I thought that, you know, they did a good job of being responsible in the run game. You know, not giving up that one crease, because as we know with Breece Hall, it doesn't take much. All it takes is for one guy to not be where he's supposed to be. All it takes is one missed tackle. All it takes is for one guy to over pursue and him to cut it back, and he's gone. Just be responsible. Do your job. Be where you're supposed to be. You know, make the tackle. If you can't get him down, hold him up just long enough so that help arrives. They did all of those things tonight defensively. They stayed away from the big play. They never gave up the explosives. They kept the Jets in 3rd and long. They got off the field when they were supposed to. They didn't give up. That's been a bugaboo for them. 3rd and long, teams have been converting on them all season long. They've been playing, you know, too far off of teams and giving them opportunities to catch the ball and run after the catch and convert on 3rd and long. That didn't happen tonight. That didn't happen tonight. And maybe that's a byproduct of the opponent you were playing. You didn't fear Zach Wilson's ability to hurt you, and so you could be a little bit more aggressive. Whatever the case may be, they got it done, you know. And again, the back end is going to look really well when the front is getting to the quarterback the way that they did tonight. They harassed the shit out of Zach Wilson. So you needed this win. If you're planning on getting back into the thick of things in the AFC playoff race, which you are squarely entrenched in it now at 4-4, you needed to win this game. And I know it's easy to dismiss the Jets. I don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what's going to become of the rest of this Jets season. I said this before the game. I'm shocked that they even have 4 wins right now. This is a 2-1. This is a 1-2 win ball club from a offensive standpoint. They're right now on pace. What did they go on 3rd downs tonight? They're right now on pace to set the NFL record for the worst 3rd down conversion percentage in NFL history. They came into the game at 23%. 3 of 17 isn't going to help that percentage at all. Let's see what 3 of 17 equals out to. Is that higher than 23%? My guess is it's 20. 3 of 17, I'm going to guess, is 24%. So it's not going to hurt it. Let's see what 3 of 17 equals out to. Oh my God, it's 17%. So their 23% 3rd down conversion rate is going to plummet to probably around 21% after the 3 for 17 tonight. This offense is horrendous. And the fact that they've won 4 games despite this offense is a testament to Robert Saleh, that defense, and, you know, them being opportunistic, and then sometimes the ball just bouncing their way, right? Whatever the case may be, I don't know how the rest of this season is going to turn out for the Jets. But if they want Aaron Rodgers to try to come back, they're going to have to stick around. But if you're the Chargers, let's not leave it to chance. I don't know if this Jets team is going to be vying for a playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to be, around, when Aaron Rodgers is ready to come back. As a matter of fact, let me check and see, because they keep talking about December. I know we play the Jets in December, and I'm like, just let me get a piece of Zach Wilson, please, before Aaron Rodgers try to bring his funky ass back. Shit, it's late December too. It's Christmas Eve. He'll probably, if he's coming back, he'll be back by then. My guess is, right? Let's see how many, because if they start losing, then it's like, no, don't worry about it, right? It's over. But if they keep fighting, like the Raiders, well, I feel good about the Raiders now with their new coach, Antonio Pierce. I feel good about the Raiders kicking the Jets' ass on Sunday Night Football. Then the Bills, they should lose that game. The Dolphins, they should lose that game. Okay, I feel good now. I feel better. And then they got the Dolphins twice before they see us. So, even if they beat the Texans, if they beat the Falcons, whatever, they should lose to the Raiders, Bills, Dolphins twice. And if that happens, 1, 2, 3, 4, they'll be 6-8. Best case scenario, they're 6-8 before the Washington game. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to come back at 6-8, right? That's my hope. If he's ready to come back during the second Dolphins game, the week before Washington, and they're 6-7, he might come back for that. Because this Jets team with Aaron Rodgers is dangerous. They're one of the most dangerous teams in football if Aaron Rodgers is on this football team. And I know the offensive line has had their fair share of issues. Rodgers is going to clean a lot of that up because he's going to get the ball out of his hands quick. He's going to know where to go. He's going to get that bitch out of his hands quickly to playmakers, and the rest is history. So it changes everything. You don't know what's gonna become of the Jet season if you're the Chargers. Just go ahead and get the tiebreaker out of the way. You're both 4-4. Who knows? Your season looks like it's on the upward swing. Your trajectory is pointing upwards. Theirs is pointing down. But who knows what's going to become of their season? They may, beat the Raiders next week and turn their thing around and find a way to be at 6-5, and then Rodgers is ready to come back. And then you look up, and at the end of the season, they're 9-8, and so are you. You got the tiebreaker, right? Let's just make sure you get that taken care of, and you did that tonight. If you're the Jets, it's not really much for me to say. The defense did what they've done all season long. They've given you a shot, right? They gave you a chance in this game. You give up a special teams touchdown, Garrett Wilson fumbles, and just like that, you're down 14-0. And the defense put the clamps down on the Chargers offensively pretty much the rest of the night and gave the offense every opportunity that it needed to make this a ball game. And they couldn't do it. And the only thing I would say about the defense is there was a drive at 17-6, late stages of the third. You let the Chargers burn up 8 minutes of the clock, pick up 4 third down conversions, and get a field goal when the score was 17-6. And in my mind, I was doing the math, and I was saying, hey, all the Jets need is a field goal, one more field goal, and it's a one-possession game. And then that's when shit gets a little bit tight, because if you're a Chargers fan, you start playing the mental gymnastics, and you start saying, here we go again. And now that's the game pressure the Jets needed to put on the Chargers that they never were able to put on them. If I swear to you, if this thing ever got to one possession in the second half, and it never did, because it was 17-3 at half, then it was 17-6, and it stayed that way. If it ever got to 17-9 or 17-13, if they go for 2, 17-14, or even 17-12, whatever, if it ever got to one score, the Chargers might have fell the hell apart. I would have loved to have seen what a little bit of game pressure would have done to the Chargers tonight. But it never got to that point. They were never within, and that's the beauty of playing a bad team when your defense is playing well, is that once you got that 2-touchdown lead, hey, let's just not do anything stupid, and we got this thing in the bag. And that's got to be a debilitating feeling for Robert Saleh, because he's just thinking in his head, just give me something to work with. My defense is over here kicking ass. Give me something. And at some point, if you're solid, now you're begging your defense. Yeah, guys, I need a turnover. They can't do this shit without us. They can't do this shit alone. Guys, we need a turnover. And they had chances. The ball was, I talked about Gerald Everett, ball on the ground. Justin Herbert, ball on the ground. You know, have you ever seen a quarterback that damn tall get this many balls batted in the damn air? And I know he likes to drop to this 3/4 shit for no reason. He gets a lot of he's too damn tall. He's 6'6", and he's stay getting the ball batted at the line of scrimmage. He should not be having this many passes batted at the line of scrimmage. But he doesn't throw over the top enough. But whatever. Ball batted in the air, and as a Chargers fan, all you can do is hold your breath as you hope that thing hits the ground and you're able to dodge a bullet. And it did. You know, there were chances, but unfortunately, Robert Saleh's defense couldn't come up with that one play that they needed tonight. And, you know, Joe Buck asked Troy Aikman, what do you do? There's nothing to do. If you were going to do something, it was going to have to come prior to the trade deadline. Once you committed to Zach Wilson and you pretty much said, hey, we're going to figure it out with Zach, that was it. There's no going back. There's no changing anything. You got what you got now, and you got to find ways like you've been doing all season. You got to find and manufacture ways to win. And if you can't do that, you're going to end up being 6-11 this season, right? So you got to hope that next week you got a young quarterback in Aiden O'Connell starting for the Raiders. Your goal is to harass this young kid and force him into 3 or 4 turnovers. That's how you'll beat the Raiders next week. I don't see you beating Josh Allen and the Bills in Buffalo. You got your one against them. You had no business getting that. I can't, and I know the Bills have been Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and the Giants played good defense against them and almost beat them and held them to 14 points. It could happen. I don't think it will. But, you know, you got the Texans and you got the Falcons. These are teams that you should be able to harass young quarterbacks, or in the case of the Falcons, Taylor Heineke, and you should be able to find a way to win if you are able to create the turnovers that this team is very capable of creating against, you know, quarterbacks that are of lesser stature and caliber. So I'm not counting this Jets football team out. You know, you sprinkle in a little bit of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. I really like the tight end position for this football team between Uzama and Conklin. And even Ruckert, who I know doesn't get a lot of opportunities to catch the football, but I just think you got a wealth of talent there. There's enough stuff here. You know, there's enough stuff here to get you by. If you can, you're going to have to play exceptional defense. And I know that's crazy talk for a team that's probably already one of the best, if not the best defense in football, but you're going to have to turn the shit up another notch, if that's even possible. I mean, I'm asking you to turn the heat up in the, you know, defensive kitchen to 600 degrees on an oven that only goes up to 550. I apologize for even asking you to do this, but I mean, this is where we are. In order for you to get where you want to go, and all you're trying to do is buy time to get to Aaron Rodgers. I don't even know how realistic it is to expect him back, but that's all you're trying to do is just, can we find a way to be in the mix by the time Rodgers is back up and throwing the football and running around and being able to get under center and get to, you know, get his drop going, push off, you know, and not have any issues? Can we just be, you know, one game below 500 and the final wild card spot? We're just a game and a half back of the final wild card spot, or just 2 games back with 5 to go. That's all you're looking to do. And just give yourself a chance. Because you're going to have to win maybe a game or 2 that we don't probably see you winning. You know, you're probably going to have to beat the Dolphins once. Probably going to have to beat the Raiders next week on Sunday Night Football. Again, Aiden O'Connell, you can take advantage of him. But the Raiders defensively can take advantage of Zach Wilson just as much as you can take advantage of Aiden O'Connell. Really, it's going to just boil down who makes the least amount of mistakes. That's what it'll boil down to next week. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Chargers get the win 27-6. How about that goal line, keeping them out of the end zone at the end? I mean, that's pride right there. If you're the Chargers, you come all this way, you haven't given up a touchdown all night long. You're not trying to give that shit up. I think a tall tale sign of how they felt about, defensively what they had done tonight was they put Bosa and Mack back in it. I wouldn't have put them back in the game. Yeah, I want to keep them out of the end zone badly, but at that point of the game, the health of my two best pass rushers are of more value to me than preserving a touchdownless game, right, for the opposition. The last thing you would have needed is Bosa to strain a hamstring or a groin at the end of this game because you were being greedy trying to keep the damn Jets out of the end zone in a three touchdown game deficit. Yeah, like, what are you doing, Brandon Staley? And I like Troy Aikman said, I know, I get it. That time of the game, your pass rushers know they can pin their ears back, get after the quarterback. Hey, I'm trying to pad my stats. Maybe a couple of incentives in my contract to get to certain landmarks. Here's an opportunity for me to maybe add a sack or two to the total. But you've already ate tonight. You ate good. If your Bows are 2.5 sacks tonight, you already have eaten good tonight. Let somebody else have some, right? You're done. I'm not putting those guys back in the game, but good stop there at the end anyway. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, video channel. Zach Wilson plays quarterback like a civilian." Salah about to blow a vessel watching that average Joe start every Sunday. #NHO. It's rough, man. I watched Robert Salah, and he's trying his best. We watched Hard Knocks. Most of us did. And we know how nasty of a mouth he has. Every other word is an F-bomb. And we know how emotionally charged this guy can get. We've seen him at the podium after big wins, the Eagles game, and how he talked about, hey, we shut down every quarterback that we faced that's been elite to this point. And we know this guy, wants it bad. And like you said, I know it's got to be killing him. Absolutely killing him inside. Like they talked about it during the telecast. Like, this shit's eating him up. All he can do is stand there with his arms folded and just, in his head, he's probably saying, what the man? God damn it, Zach. This is some fucking bullshit. What kind of, junior, amateur fucking bullshit is this? Like, I could hear him just F-bomb after F-bomb watching this all. But what is he going to do? What are you going to do? You already know what it is. There's really nothing he can do at this point. It's rough. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Love the trademark symbol at the end of the Fat American. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, "Hey, yo, that hat is clean as F, Lou." I appreciate that. It's one of my favorite hats. I miss being able to wear this more often. I try to wear it, when I remember to, as much as I can, because this was always when we used to wear these jerseys. I used to always, when I used to play Madden and I would play with Washington, which was not very often because we weren't very good. We didn't have a lot of talent. But 05, I did play with us back in those days, 04, 05, because of the defense with LeVar Arrington, Sean Taylor, LaRon Landry. All that speed on defense was ridiculous. We still didn't have any real speed on the defensive line, but with that kind of speed, you could do some things defensively in those days. And I would always wear the throwbacks from the 70s with the yellow pants, the striped socks, and the white jerseys with the yellow helmet with the red R. It's always been my favorite look. It's a shame that we'll never see this again because we don't have any tradition anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, teams want to wear throwbacks. That's dope. Our throwback is Washington football team now. That's as close as we'll get to a throwback jersey now. So that sucks. Anyway, Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, back in 2020 when they mic'd up Chase against the Steelers, Ben asked why was he in coverage. He said, I don't know. Ask the coaches. Made me think there was some friction even then. He said, and well, we know the rest. I already told you he wasn't happy here. But I don't think it had anything to do with, I don't think the friction starts that far back in 2020 in his rookie season. Everything was all good. I think the friction began that offseason of his going into his second year when Ron Rivera made the comment about him and Montez Sweat not acting like they had already arrived. Remember, Chase was the only guy that didn't show up at the OTAs. He was shooting commercials, Family Feud, Chipotle, all that shit during OTAs, and he didn't show up. And then he went out and had a sack and a half through 8 games and, wasn't disciplined. And Ronald called him and Sweat out and pretty much said they're freelance and doing their own thing. They're going too far up the field. And that's where the friction began, right? And it only got worse. And I felt like the final straw was when he got hurt. Fans turned on him. So there wasn't, this is a hometown kid we're talking about. So fans turned on him. They didn't support him during his injury. All you heard about was he's a bust. He only had a sack and a half before he got hurt. The defense is better without him. The same shit you see, like, as a Grizzlies fan, I would hear stupid shit like that when Ja would be out and we would win games. This team's better off without Ja. Shut up. You dummy. Shut the hell up. No way, right? No way the team was better without Chase Young. But he hears that stuff. And then, move that stuff aside, though, because really that's ancillary. What people say outside the building doesn't matter. What really mattered was they thought he could have come back. And I chronicled this last year, and I told you how they felt last year, right? And so I already gave you all of the sidebar conversation that led up to his frustration, okay? I talked about they thought he would be ready for the second Eagles game on Monday Night Football. He wasn't ready. The next week, they said, okay, he'll be ready next week against Houston. Oh, it's turf. He's like, nah, I don't want to play on turf for my first game back. Okay, don't worry about it. We got the Falcons next week at home. You'll be back for that game. And then it was raining that day. And so he's like, yeah, you don't want to come back in a rainy condition, my first game back. Let's wait till next week. And then the next week was the Giants on the road. Nobody's going to come back their first game at MetLife. Hell no. So he's like, okay, everybody just assume. After the bye week, it makes a ton of sense. After the bye week, he should be ready. Give him all the time he needs. He can ramp up. Yeah, bye week, biggest game of the season, biggest game at home at FedEx Field in years. Perfect conditions, great night. Chase Young in civvies on the sidelines. That was the night that Ron and company said, F him. We're not picking up the 5th-year option. He can kiss our ass. And from that point forward, it was a fractured relationship. They were already frustrated with him. And he strung that. They had already been told by the doctors, hey, this dude's knee is fine. Now it's just up here. Week 10 going into the Eagles game, the second Eagles game, they had already been told by the doctors, knee's fine. It was all Chase and it was all up here. So they're like waiting for Chase to just give them the clearance. Hey, go ahead, man. When you're ready, do your thing. Chase even said, it's on me. I get to decide when I come back. And then he started talking about how football don't define me and all of that shit. And again, ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. You're the number 2 overall pick. We need you out on the field. So once they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, Chase was done with them. They were done with Chase when he didn't come back in time for that Giants game. And he was done with them when they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. I don't know if we saw Chase smile once. This is a guy that you couldn't wipe the smile off of his face in his rookie season. The second year, you couldn't wipe the smile off of his face. Even when the man was in the midst of a 1.5 sack season, he kept talking about they come in bunches. He kept laughing and joking and kikiing because he was still in a good place mentally. It wasn't until he got injured and the fan base really didn't have his back. And the coaching staff was trying to rush him back in his mind. And I don't think they were rushing him. They were told by the doctors, he's medically good. The knee is stable. He's fine. He's cleared for contact. It's all up to Chase now. It's about him clearing those mental hurdles. And they thought he should have cleared those mental hurdles a lot sooner. They were okay with him missing games that they ultimately won. Beat the Eagles, so it's okay. Beat the Texans, so it's okay. Beat the Falcons, so it's okay. You tie the Giants, though. All right, I need you back for this Giants game. This is a big one. He doesn't come back and you lose. All right. Then he comes back against the 49ers, but by that time, you're thinking to yourself, just a little too late. Too little, too late. But hey, cool. We appreciate it, though. But damage is already done. Now we're not picking up the fifth-year option. And at that point, now Chase is like, oh, that's how we're going to play it? You're not going to pick up the fifth-year option? And you could tell he didn't want to be here. There was no love in that building for him. And so Chase had turned cold. And I told you, I said, Chase ain't happy. You can see it. Everything he was doing at that point was for self. He played for his brothers and, you're not trying to let your teammates down, but he could give two shits about the organization at that point. Like those press conferences, those locker room scrumps. First of all, Chase Young's one of the faces of the franchise. How many times did he actually sit at the podium behind the microphone during the season? How many times did he do that? I can answer that for you. 0. They would go to Kendall Fuller. Jonathan Allen would stand behind the podium after a loss or even a win. They go to Kendall Fuller after he makes a big play. Never Chase Young. Why? Because Chase was done. They would go to his locker. Chase would not smile. It was like a hostage video every single time. You ask him a question, you'd be lucky to get 3 or 4 words out of him as an answer. Man, nah, I'm cool, though. Yeah, man, I ain't tripping off none of that. That's all you were getting. He wasn't smiling. He had already made up in his mind, I don't F with none of these dudes. I don't F with the media, the fans, none of this shit. I'm done. And that's why I was like, you got to trade this dude. In my mind, I'm saying that because I don't think he wants to be here. Well, they made the right decision, and I wish him nothing but the best. And, I saw the press conference today. I heard everything he said. I got no beef, no issues with nothing that he said. The man wasn't happy. Let him be free. The last thing I want to do is hold a player hostage. I'm not here trying to shoot hostage videos and put a gun to somebody's head to make them play for my organization. You don't want to be here? That's cool. You're free. You're free to go. Joe Gibbs, I love him to death. You know why? Because Joe Gibbs was never about forcing anybody to stay somewhere they didn't want to be. When Joe Gibbs got here and Lavernius Coles wanted out, he said, hey, let me help you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to work the phones. Come back and see me in a week. I'm going to get you out of here. Like, you ain't got to twist my arm. Champ Bailey, you don't want to be here? I'm going to get you out of here. No worries. You ain't even got a trip. I'll take care of it. First thing he did when he got here was he got Champ Bailey the hell up out of here. I'm not saying I loved it as a fan, but I understand it. If he didn't want to be here, which Champ didn't, all right, let's go. Move him. Fat American. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, Hey, Madden 06, Washington was 88 overall, LOL. Well, that's because they were coming off the 05 season, Fat American, right? That's why. At that time, you had Portis, Cooley. 05 would have been Brunell. Campbell wasn't. I think they drafted Campbell in 05, if I'm not mistaken. So he wouldn't have been of much help to you. But Brunell, Santana Moss, Cooley, Portis, that nucleus. And then, like I said, defensively, you had a ton of speed. That was LaRon Landry, LeVar. I think that was the last year LeVar. 06 was the last year LeVar, if I'm not mistaken. So you still had LeVar. You had Sean Taylor. You had LaRon Landry. I think you still had Antonio. Antonio Pierce might have been gone, though. I'm not sure if 05 was the last year of Pierce or 06 was. Pretty sure it was 05, and they let him walk in 06 because he won the Super Bowl with the Giants in 07. And I don't think that was his first year there. It might have been his first year there, but There was some talent on that team, and that was one of the last times I played with Washington on Madden. It was right around that 04-05 era in that mix. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, we could see that logo again if we go Red Wolves. I don't see it happening. Anything that traces back to Redskins, I think they're going to do away with it. There's just no way to kind of bring back and tie in the history of this organization because of the name. I just, as a fan, you just got to come to grips with that and let it go. You know, there's a lot of fans that just refuse to let it go, and that's fine. You know, if the older you are as a fan, the more ties and the more attachment you have to the Redskins name, it's harder for you to part ways with that. But I came to grips with it a while back. You know, like, bro, it's over. You know, I'm never going to see that jersey again. I'm never going to see that jersey again. Like, I talk about the 75th anniversary joints with the spears on the helmet, right? The dark burgundy jerseys. I have a Portis one. Like, between this one and that one, bro, it's over. We'll never see those jerseys again. Never. And you know what? I'm okay with that. It took me a while to get to that point, but I'm okay with that. Barry Curtis Jr., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what's up, Lou? That Jets front plays how we dreamed our front would play. Bryce Huff is a beast. I was thinking about that tonight. When I watched Bryce Huff, I was like, damn, that must be nice to have a third down situational pass rusher like Bryce Huff come off the bench and be able to get pressure, it seems like, at will. You know, even if he doesn't get the sack, his pressure sets it up for the next guy to come in and clean it up. Yes, their front, you know, it's frustrating because I watch fronts play, and I think it's some of it is, you know, winning one-on-one and all that, but a lot of it is scheme. Like, a lot of these twists and stunts, they run these shits to perfection. Like Bosa got a sack tonight where all he did was he ran inside on a twist, right? Guy came down, he twisted around, the guard was there to catch him, and then he just ran him over into the quarterback. Sometimes you just got to win, but it's still scheming the shit up. Yeah, their front is nasty. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel writes, how would you have felt if Washington gave Tez that deal? I'd have been disappointed because I already told you Tez isn't. You saw the names on the list where he ranks now. I think he is now like the 4th highest paid edge rusher in football, you know, behind Garrett, Nick Bosa, and there's one more guy I can't think of off the top of my head that is in front of him. But I know it's Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and somebody else is ahead of him. Probably TJ Watt, if I had to guess. I don't remember who that other guy is that's ahead of him, but he's in front of Max Crosby and somebody else that I was like, he shouldn't be in front of those guys. But that's what it was going to take, because if you weren't going to do it, somebody else was going to do it. And as you saw, the Bears just did it, right? I always tell you guys this. If it's something worth having, somebody's always eyeballing your stuff. So I wasn't interested in giving him that deal. Not after we did the deal with, I was okay with signing one of these edge rushers if we didn't give the deal to Duran last year. You know, in my mind, Jonathan Allen was the one that was expendable to me. Like, Duran was the one because of his durability, and he was the best run defender we had. And then I could understand why they didn't want to pay him initially and why they waited to the last minute. He had to show him he could get to the quarterback, and he did last year. But Jonathan Allen is the one I was like, if you're going to let one of these dudes go, let him go. But he was too much of a leader, right? He's too much of a leader. You know, a guy that is like a face of the franchise on and off the field. There was no way, right? There was no way they were going to let that guy walk. And I get it, you know. And you also had to set precedents in the locker room, like, hey, if you do it the right way, you do what we asked you to do, this is what happens. And so they started with him, then it went to Terry, then it was Deron. And so I think that's what really broke a lot of the players up in the locker room. They were frustrated is because they had shown that they were taking care of players, but you can't pay everybody. And you got to pick your spots. And Tez wasn't worth $98 million. I'm sorry, over 4 years. You're essentially playing that man $25 million a year. It's 24 and some change. Nah, I'm good. 24 and a half, I believe, is what that number is for him. Nah, he's not worth that to me. And I'm glad he got the bag, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad he went and got the bag from somebody else. Couldn't be happier for him. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, true, but Ron still took the low road and then tried to play dumb as if he didn't say anything. Starting to lose respect for that good man acting two-faced. Yeah, I told y'all when it happened, when that whole little report got out and Ron tried to play the dumb role like he didn't know how it got out. He got it from you. That's your boy. That's your guy that leaked it. So where do we naturally think he got it from? Michael Silver is your boy. So yeah, that pissed me off because I told you I'm not this organization is taking the low road for decades under Daniel Snyder. So as far as I'm concerned, I ain't looking to take nothing but high roads at this point because we've done the low road thing. We've looked to smear people, smear their names through the mud. We've looked to drag people through the mud and put dirt and kick dirt on people's names on the way out. That's been our move. Always trying to save face and look like, hey, it wasn't us, it was them. Did it to Kirk, did it to Dwayne Haskins, did it to Scott McCloughan, and they did it again here, right? Did it to Junior Gillette, even though that was a messy situation, but that's always been their move. And so did it to Trent, right? Even though I think Trent had culpability in that situation as well. He wasn't completely innocent, but still, that's always been their move. And when Ron got here, it wasn't supposed to be the move anymore. And then when he did it to Dwayne, I was like, oh, you on that same shit too. And the question was, were you infected? Did you get here and did they sink their teeth into you as well? Because we know that whole environment with Ron, with Daniel Snyder and company, that shit is toxic. And if you come in, you get infected too. But now he's not there anymore and you're still doing the same shit. So that tells me that's who you are. That's part of your character. I don't like that shit. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, them 2002 unis with the spear helmet were lit. That's the ones. These right here, from the 70s, the George Allen joints, which are these, and the 2002 throwbacks that they wore to commemorate the 75th year anniversary. Stupid. Or it might have been 70. Whatever it was. Stupid. Dumb. Ridiculous. I think it was 70. I think that was the 70th. Because I think the Boston Braves started in 1932. I think that's accurate. Ridiculous. And I would love to see those one more time, but we're never going to see those again. Anyway. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, still trying to figure out what happened to Hawks this week. The Ravens happened to them. That's what happened. That's a good football team. I mean, they swarmed your ass in that game. They got after Geno Smith. They shut down the run game. And, offensively, they're just so dynamic with Lamar Jackson. And it wasn't really that they were super dynamic offensively. It was just so much of their defense just shutting you down. And you couldn't get going. But I'm going to be honest with you, though. And Vincent Cole, be honest with me. Your offense hasn't been good since the bye week. Like, you came back after the bye week, and it might have been prior to the bye week. Because because I think the Giants game was prior to the bye week. You weren't good against the Giants on offense. That was all your defense that night. You went into the bye, you come off the bye, and I think you lost to Cincinnati and you couldn't score in the red zone. Then you went home and I think you beat Arizona, but that wasn't pretty. You were in a dogfight. Like, you haven't been impressive offensively since probably Detroit. No, that's too far back. You've had some good showings probably since then. Maybe a week or two prior to the Giants game. But it's been a long time. If I'm talking about the Giants game had to be week 5. Like, you haven't been impressive offensively in a while. So I could see the Ravens game coming a mile away. You haven't been scoring points. You haven't been consistent offensively. You've left a lot of opportunities on the field. So I'm not surprised that happened to you guys. I'm really not. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB once again, who writes, what do you think about trading Allen in the draft if the price is right, or next season? Or one of the D tackles if the price is right? Or are you not with that? No, I'm not with that. I mean, these guys right now, to me, are a part of the solution. They are a part of what we're trying to build. And, you know, you've already paid them. Those contracts are already in motion. You've already planned for them and the money that you spent on them moving forward. I don't think you have to do anything there. That's why you had to get rid of the 2 ends, right? And so the beauty of it is if you're able to hit on just one defensive end, you know, one guy that can be dynamic with those 2 inside, it's going to cause some problems. I think you just leave it as is, right? So I'm not looking to move those guys at all right now. They're under contract for the next. Payne is under contract for at least another 3 seasons. I think Allen maybe 2 more seasons. So just, you know, let it ride and see what happens, right? I think you're in a good spot. Financially, you're in a good spot. Draft picks wise, all of a sudden you're in a great spot. You know, you got some talent, like I said, but you can add a lot more to the ledger. But I think you're in a really good spot. Like I said, the next group that comes in here, there's going to be a lot to work with. This should be a very enticing job. Should be a very enticing job for a GM. Austin Testerman, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Austin writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Austin? Going to the game this weekend in Seattle. Last time I saw them play was 2017 when Kirk clutched it for us in the 4th. Oh, that was a classic, man. I still don't know how he won that game. That's the game where we went up there with like 3 guys out on the offensive line, 3 or 4 guys out on the offensive line. One of the guys had just gotten there literally like 3 days prior, and he ended up starting. We probably had like 9 or 10 guys out of the lineup that were starters. Of the 22 guys that, you know, were supposed to start, like literally 7 or 8 of them, maybe upwards of 9, were out of that game. And you just were like, oh, we're going to get slaughtered. And Kendall Fuller had a diving pick in that game. And I just remember somehow, some way we hung in. I'll never forget that final drive, right? Kirk throws a ball to Brian Quick, and it's over the wrong shoulder, and he turns the other way, and he catches it, and he gets mollywopped, and he ends up getting a concussion and doesn't play the following week. But he makes the catch, and I still don't know how he held on to that football. And then Kirk throws the pass to Josh Doctson, who dives. And at that point, we had all given up on Josh Doctson. He was a bust. He stunk. You know, anybody that was still holding out hope, you know, that was the play where you're like, hey, Doctson he lives. You know, it's not over yet. And Kirk ends up sneaking it in, I believe. And you know, we end up stealing that game. I remember Norman getting cooked off the line of scrimmage by Doug Baldwin. I thought we were going to lose at that point. That they took the lead right there, cooked him off the line of scrimmage, and Russ hits him for the touchdown. And I'm thinking, well, good fight, fellas, but you know, just it wasn't meant to be. You know, I think that made it like 12-7 or some shit like that. You know what I mean? It's a weird ass game. And Kirk hits Dotson for the diving play down in the one, and we steal that game in Seattle. Unreal. I still don't know how we won that damn game. Still can't tell you how the hell we find a way to win that game. Barry Curtis Jr., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, with the emergence of Sam, do we go all in on free agency? I don't know. I think the free agency piece is interesting because you still have guys that you need to take care of here. And I think that's what's going to be interesting is, does the new regime come in and disregard the guys that are currently here that have earned a contract if the last staff remained intact? Or does the new regime come in and give the respect to the guys on the roster like Kendall Fuller and Cam Curl and maybe even Curtis Samuel, guys like that? Because if you're going to spread the money around to those guys, then you can't be super aggressive in free agency. But if you say to hell with, some of those guys and you decide to, go outside looking to, get help, then yes, they may go, a little buck wild in free agency. Generally, I'll say this, when a new GM comes in, depending on where you are as a football team, and usually if a new GM is being brought in, new coaching staff, you're not a good team, and so if that's happening, normally you're going to see huge turnover. And when you see huge turnover, a lot of money isn't being allocated. It's usually a lot of small deals for, guys. And so rarely do you see a GM come in his first year and he goes out and signs a bunch of big money free agents, because I'm trying to turn the roster over, and allocating large portions of the salary cap to one or two players isn't smart when you're trying to make wholesale changes, if that makes any sense. So a lot of times what you'll see is, just like when Ronald and company came in 2020, what did they do? They didn't make any big purchases. It was a lot of small purchases. It was Wes Schweitzer 3 for $14.5 million. It was Cornelius Lucas 2 for 10. It was J.D. McKissick 2 for 7. It was John Bostic being re-signed. It was Kendall Fuller was the highest priced item we brought in, 4 for 40, right? But it was a lot of small little, Logan Thomas, 2 years, $10 million. Like, it was a lot of that shit, right? Not a lot of, big contracts, but a lot of small ones to guys that help you turn the roster over. So that's what I see more of, and less of, okay, let's go out and spend, $24 million a year on this left tackle or this defensive end that's available in free agency. So anyway, I don't think they go all in. I think that's why the draft capital is there. And, it just depends on how this season ends up. If this season ends with a flurry, this team ends up in the playoffs, the next GM might come in here, if something happens. I mean, I'd hate to think that nothing's going to happen, but the next group might come in here and say, hey, we don't need to do a whole hell of a lot. Just add a couple pieces here and there, have a big draft, and we think we can win. And then in that case, then, yeah, maybe you do go out and you spend some money in free agency, but still a lot of time left in the season. So it's kind of hard to answer that question right now. Come back and talk to me in 2 months. I'll be able to give you a definitive answer on what I think is going to happen. Still a lot of football left to be played as we sit here. Let's get to the comment section. All right. Red Wings says, man, the Jets offense is hot garbage. Zach Wilson is terrible, and on the rare occasion he makes good plays, his receivers catch a case of the dropsies. And that O-line, sheesh. Yeah, it's rough. I'm not going to lie to you. It seems like they can't catch a break. But it seems like they take turns effing up, whether it's a penalty pre-snap, it's holding during the play, hands to the face, some bullshit. Even when they had a good play, screen for 18 yards, negated due to a holding penalty. Nice Breece Hall run, negated due to a penalty. That was their night. Jack Miller, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jack Miller writes, Adam Peters, assistant GM 49ers. What do you think of him being GM here in Washington? That's the guy that I said. I've seen rumors of him being the guy. And, one of the rumors that I've heard, and again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't put too much stock into this stuff this time of the year. But it is worth mentioning that part of the reason that, and a lot of people see the Chase Young deal as a sweetheart deal. I don't. I see that as a deal. You got the most compensation you were going to get for Chase Young. Nobody was willing to give you a day 2 pick. Period. You call it a 4th round pick. It's a day 2 pick. Compensatory picks in the 3rd round are made in day number 2. It's a day 2 pick. I'm a glass half full guy. So if you're glass half empty, it's the equivalent of a day 3 pick to you. It's an extension of the 4th round. For me, it's an extension of the 3rd round. You call it whatever you want. I call it a day 2 pick, and you weren't getting a day 2 offer from anybody else. So take it for what it's worth. But some people see it as a sweetheart deal. I don't. But the rumor is part of the reason they did that deal with San Francisco is because on the back end, they like, Adam Peters, and part of them doing San Francisco a favor is the 49ers doing them a favor on the back end, and Peters being a guy that may be interested, and they may be interested in him coming to Washington, right? So that's one of the rumors out there. Again, and he's interviewed, for a bunch of GM spots, and he's going to get a job eventually. I wouldn't be shocked if he got one this offseason. Could be in Washington. Right? He was one of the finalists for the Giants GM job when it was available 2 years ago. He interviewed twice for it, and they ultimately went with the assistant in Buffalo, kind of to marry him with Brian Daboll. But I don't know. We'll see. He turned down opportunities last offseason, which I didn't blame him. The Cardinals had a GM vacancy. So did the Titans. He's like, yeah, those 2 organizations stink. I'm good. I'm going to pass on that. But, this might be the opportunity he's looking for. So we'll see. His name has definitely come up. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American, right? So what exactly is this Shins guy's role with us? So technically, I think it's vice president of something statistics. I forgot the one word that I'm forgetting. But ultimately, yeah, he's supposed to help with analytics and data, but he's helping with more than that. He was a part of the brain trust and the decision-making process with the trades with Sweat and Tez. So he's got a little bit more input than the title, I think, suggests. When you hear the title, you're thinking, oh, okay, he's going to help with numbers, tendency breaks, when to go for it on 4th down, when to go for the 2-point conversions, things of that nature. He's going to help with some of the analytical data that Ron and company struggle with. And then, moving forward, whomever's here, he's going to help them with some of the numbers like, hey, guys, we got a Thursday night game, shit that you wouldn't think of. As a coach, you're locked into the game. You're not thinking, hey, we got a Thursday night game. Like that against the Eagles. First game against the Eagles this season. The analytics and the data says you have to go for 2, not you should. You have to go for 2. You got a Thursday night game, quick turnaround. Teams that go to overtime and have to have a quick turnaround for Thursday night football historically have struggled. And it's not like, they're getting their asses whooped. What did we do? We went and got our asses whooped. Now, had we won against Philadelphia, maybe that ass whooping doesn't happen. Maybe there was more of a hangover, and it was less because of the extra time played in the game and more of, man, we let one slip through our fingers. That one hurt us, and we didn't recover in enough time. Or maybe there is some credence to the fact that you just didn't need to take your ass to overtime because you have a quick turnaround and you don't have time to be playing an additional 5 to 7 minutes of bonus football. You need to be getting your ass on this bus and getting on this plane and getting your ass back to DC. So I think when you think about his title, you're thinking this is what he's going to help with, but it sounds like he's helping with a lot more than that, just that. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, you think that Josh's sneak football guy hire? You think? Yeah, I think this is Josh. One thing we've seen, you know, and I've been told this, and I haven't followed his career, so I go off of what people tell me until it's important enough for me to look it up myself. Right? Right now, none of this stuff matters to me. When it does matter to me, that's when I start looking up and doing my own homework. Right? And I've done some homework on Eugene Shin, and I've had people send me, you know, videos with this guy doing seminars and speeches and conferences. And so I'm fascinated by all that because I want to know how his mind works. So I'm going to watch those videos and I'll be able to report back what I've, you know, heard him say. But because he's got philosophical beliefs, and obviously those philosophical beliefs must align, or they just value his opinion so much so that they brought him in. And Josh Allen has shown the ability wherever he's been, whether it's the New Jersey Devils or the Philadelphia 76ers, that he's going to hire analytics guys, that he's going to be a forward thinker, and he's going to have guys that are smart, that think outside the box within his organization. And we've been one of the Stone Age teams when it comes to analytics and data, even though Ron tries to make it seem like he's cutting edge. When he uses the word data or analytics, he makes it sound like he's making some kind of informed decision when we all know, bro, you ain't making no damn decisions based off of no data's number or nothing, right? You just literally went with your gut. And then when the shit doesn't work, well, the analytics said, no, it didn't, Ronald. Stop lying, okay? Well, we got boo-boo the fool written on our damn foreheads. Cut the foolishness out. So I do think this was a Josh Harris hire of a guy that he respects, and this guy's respected around the league. It's not like and I told you that the stop that did it for me was the one in Baltimore for 5 years. I believe it was 2014 through 19, I believe, in Baltimore. And to me, if you want to talk about cutting edge and forward thinking, I've always felt like, even when he was criticized, I've always felt like John Harbaugh has been willing to stick his neck out there for the sake of analytics. He was the guy that was in the league going for 2-point conversions at random ass times when everybody was like, why are you going for 2 right now? It's a 14-point game. You score a touchdown. You're down 8. He was the first dude to go for 2. He was the first guy to go with the whole mentality of, if I get the 2-point conversion here and I score another touchdown and I keep the extra point, I win. And if I don't get it, I got another chance to get the touchdown and the 2-point conversion, and we still got overtime, which is where you would have been if you just kicked 2 extra points. He was the first guy to do that. His analytics group, and Shin was a part of that, was the first group to really implement that in the NFL. Nobody else was doing that before Harbaugh. Everybody else was like, why are the Ravens going for 2 right now? And people couldn't wrap their brain around it. And Harbaugh's like, hey, I'm big into analytics. So that's when I said, okay, Eugene Shin, that period in Baltimore, that resonates with me. Don't know what he did in Jacksonville. Don't know what he did in Miami, but I know what he was a part of in Baltimore. He changed the way teams go about business in the NFL. He was a part of that. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Ron's analytics say we'll win if he folds his arms. Well, definitely those analytics aren't true, because if that were the case, we would win every single game. And that is not what is transpiring. So I assure you that is not what Ron's analytics say. Let's see. Elf Life says he's so hot inside. These commentators aren't slick. We caught him. I don't know where you're going with that one. I'm gonna leave that one. I'm gonna leave that one alone. I don't know. It sounds like you're describing a blitz, but I'm gonna leave that one alone. Red Wing 01 writes, I still expect their defense to give us fits when we see them. Wouldn't it be our luck if A-Rod decides to have his first game back again? I'm expecting him to play against us. I was talking to my guy King of the North earlier tonight. He sent me a long message on the video, CNN last night. And, he's confident that we're going to go to Seattle and win, or I don't know if that's the right word to use. I think he feels like it's not impossible because I don't see us winning. I'm just telling you right now, I don't see us beating Seattle. And I think he does think that, why not? And the numbers suggest we've had success in Seattle in the regular season. I think we're 7-1 in our last 8 games on the road against Seattle. Like, that's cool. That don't have shit to do with this game, right? With Seattle's offense and how they're set up with Geno Smith and all those weapons at receiver, with our secondary and our lack of pass rush right now, I don't see how we're able to stop them consistently enough. Now, could we beat them in a shootout? Maybe, but you're out, and their defensive front, we're going to talk about this during the week. Defensive front is pretty damn good. And they get after the quarterback, and they do a lot of twists and stunts, and they manufacture pressure with those 4 guys, and adding Leonard Williams to that mix makes them even, better up front. They're problematic. There's a reason they sacked. I know the Giants' offensive line stinks, and that had a lot to do with it, but there's a reason they sacked him 11 times in that game. They're good up front. Boye Mafe is having himself a whale of a rookie season. They are I think he's a rookie. He might be second year out of Minnesota, but whatever the case may be, they're playing some good ball up there. They really are. So we're going to have our hands full. I'll just say that right now. I'm expecting A-Rod to come back against us. I'm expecting him to come back against us. Derek B says the Jets found a way to miss every game-changer play that was there to be had in the game. It seemed like it to be over after the punt return for a touchdown. Yeah, and that's what I said. They had opportunities to make plays in this game. The ball was on the ground 3 times. Everett fumbled, Herbert fumbled, and the punt returner, Darius Davis, muffed the punt. And their luck tonight just wasn't there, right? And the ball was batted in the air. And what seemed like an eternity, that ball was in the air, and it fell harmlessly to the ground. Like, they had their opportunities. The ball didn't bounce their way today. Andre Darden says, know you heard the Chase Young sound bites from today. Why are fans mad at him? He said nothing wrong. Because fans are going to fan. That's why. Fans are always going to find a reason to be upset, whether it's, he didn't write us a goodbye note. He didn't tell us thank you. For what? Y'all turned your back on him. That's part of the reason he wasn't happy here. And look, it's not everybody, and you could have been one of the supportive fans, right? The ones that's crying for a thank you, like Tez sent on IG, right? Tez's experience here and Chase's experience here are 2 different experiences. The fan base never turned their back on Chase or Tez, not once. There was at least 50% of this fan base that called him a bust while he was out. 50% of the fan base. And I'm supposed to tell you thank you when I leave? You were part of the reason I was miserable and I wanted out. I had no issues with nothing he said. His whole demeanor changed. I told you I'm a psychology guy, so I'm always looking at body language. I'm always looking at how guys were, how they are, and what's the difference? What changed? I'm always reading between the lines. That's how my brain works. And I told y'all, Chase ain't smiled once this season. Happy-go-lucky Chase died in 2021, and that guy never returned. Never returned. Hank Midas says, if the game was close, I know Staley was going to do something dumb. That's the beauty of, I said this earlier, I wish the Jets would have put some game pressure on the Chargers because I would have loved to have seen what they would have done in that situation. But it never got to within a score. So the Chargers never truly felt game pressure. Niners fan says, how much of the O-line struggles were on Zach? All I saw were 0 open receivers every time and the pressure right in his face. He's not as bad as everyone says, but he needs help. Now, Zach Wilson, trust me, isn't good, but what's going on around him is also helping further that narrative, right? Because again, in our minds, like Aikman said tonight, like, yeah, look, if Aaron Rodgers were playing, his offense would be a lot better. Facts. But he's like, there's still a lot of things fundamentally wrong with the Jets offense. But again, the thought process behind this is that Rodgers would get the ball out quicker, so the offensive line isn't on, the hook, and they don't look as bad. But, I think people are they're overrating the impact of Aaron Rodgers. If this offensive line isn't good, remember, there were times in camp where they struggled, and Rodgers was frustrated because they had a joint practice with the Panthers and they got their asses whooped because the Panthers were getting pressure. Rodgers didn't have time. They were out of sync. And so I'm not telling you that this offense wouldn't be better, because trust me, they wouldn't be 23% on third downs. They wouldn't be averaging 16.8 points a game or whatever the number is. They wouldn't be that team if Aaron Rodgers were their starting quarterback. Okay. But understand that just because Aaron Rodgers shows up doesn't mean all of the problems that fundamentally exist right now just evaporate. They got issues up front. Their receivers, as you mentioned, aren't creating the most separation. There've been a ton of drops. Some of it, like somebody said, I think it was Red Wings, like even when he's delivering a catchable ball, like he threw one to Uzama in the end zone, he dropped it. Should have been a touchdown, right? So, I mean, look, I'm not here to make any excuses for Zach Wilson. He stinks. But is he as bad as people make him out to be? No, I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be. But he's not good. And the fact that they are struggling up front, and the fact that his receivers aren't, helping him out a ton, doesn't help. Doesn't help. All right. Hank Minus says, did you hear what Chase said about not knowing what Washington is doing? Yeah, I didn't. I'm not stuck on Chase. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really looking to hang on every word that Chase said or none of that shit. Because that man no longer plays for the Washington Commanders. I wish him nothing but the best. I have no ill will towards him. And so what he says now doesn't move the needle for me. Okay? Because nothing he does up until we play them on Christmas, on New Year's Eve, nothing he says or does is going to impact this team. We'll see him at the end of December, and then we can spend all the time we want leading up that week. It'll be all about Chase Young, right? And hopefully he's got 19 and a half sacks by then. Okay? Hopefully he's tearing this shit up, and he's hit it out of the park. Couple of grand slams for the 49ers, and they're madly in love with him. And it looks like we gave him away at a yard sale for a compensatory third-round pick. I hope he kills it. It doesn't bother me one bit of it. It doesn't move the needle for me. So I'm not fixated on what he's talking about. I leave that for everybody else. I personally do not care. I'm gonna be honest with you, Hank. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Anyway, I think we can get out of here. We already hit our hour and 20-minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead and glide to the side. And see you guys tomorrow for CNN. And if you're a part of the LTN exclusives, catch you on the kickback. And if you're a member of the mob or on Patreon, we're going to get into that film tomorrow. We didn't get to do it last week because of all the events, which were crazy on trades and all of that stuff. So last week was helter skelter. Back to a little bit of a normalcy this week. So we'll get into the film and all of that good jazz tomorrow. But y'all know what it is. Big win for the Chargers. 27-6. They dominated this game. The scoreboard reflects a beat down start to finish. That's not what this game was. This game was 17-3 at halftime. It was 17-6 for much of the second half. And the Jets had every opportunity to make this a ball game. It was a drive late in the third, spanning 8 minutes. I think it was 2 minutes left in the third, and it lasted all the way up until about 8 or 9 minutes left in the fourth. That resulted in a field goal and that was four third down conversions on that drive that broke the Jets' backs. And once they got up 2 scores, it was over. Not 2 scores, 2 touchdowns rather. At 20-6, it was over. There was no way the Jets were going to score 2 touchdowns unless the Chargers did something catastrophic. And it almost happened. Herbert fumbled the ball. That thing was on the ground. And I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. But it wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't the Jets' night. And so they lose this game 27-6. Both teams leave this game at 4-4. And as bad as it sounds and as doom and gloom as people are going to try to make it out to be, the Jets are at 500. Okay? They got games against Atlanta and Houston and the Raiders this coming Sunday night. They got winnable football games, folks. This defense is good enough to take Aiden O'Connell and turn his ass inside out and force him to turn the bitch over 4 times and win that game 20-13. That defense is good enough to take C.J. Stroud, and I know what he did. I watched the 5 touchdowns and the 470 yards passing. He ripped my heart out of my chest. I had Tampa Bay in that game. I was celebrating after Baker Mayfield took him down the field and led him to the touchdown. I thought I won. That was a big one for me. And I watched C.J. Stroud go down the field and rip my shit out of my chest. So you damn right I know what he's capable of. And so do they. And don't think for 1 second that they can't take C.J. Stroud and make him look like a rookie. So this shit is not over. They're 4-4. They ain't 2-6. We'll see what happens. This Raiders game is big because the Jets have played good enough ball to where they haven't been underwater, right? They started out a little slow, but they got their shit together. They started winning games, and their head has been above water. They haven't had to find a way to get back above water in quite some time. And as you get deeper and deeper into the season, it becomes harder and harder to get your head above water. And so at 4-4, this is where you start to see fork in the road. Which way are you going to go? Now you're at a crossroads in your season. You've already had your bye. So now the question is, what are you going to do? Raiders haven't had their bye yet. They're playing off of adrenaline. This has been a week-long party for the Raiders, right? The Raiders want. I'm gonna save that for my podcast. Y'all get out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Look forward to chopping it up with y'all. Y'all know what it is. Chargers get the win. Y'all take care. God bless and good night.